friends, as you've probably realised, I've been looking into the characters that appear in Acts. I prepared a GodPod on Cornelius some time ago, but the Lord kept putting more information under my nose. At last, Cornelius the centurion has made it in Granny's GodPod number 76. The 10th chapter of Acts is a pivotal point. It begins the introduction of the gospel to everyone, describing the shift from Jew to Gentile, from Jerusalem to the rest of the world, and from the focus of Peter's ministry to that of Paul's. In Acts chapter 10, Luke tells us that Cornelius was a centurion in the Roman army in Caesarea shortly after the death of Jesus. At this time, Caesarea was the usual residence of the Roman procurator of Judea, and so was garrisoned by Roman troops. Cornelius was part of what was known as the Italian regiment. This probably means that the entire regiment came from Italy and did not consist of hired or conscriptive natives from other areas. Caesarea had been the capital of the Roman province of Judea since 6 AD. Greeks, Jews and Romans, and probably also Phoenicians and other traders, mingled freely in its population. The name Cornelius means little horn, but in stature Cornelius was perhaps more like the Red Indian name Little Bighorn. A centurion was not a distinguished office, simply the leader of about 100 men, compared to a Roman legion which had about 6,000 men. The Bible doesn't tell us if Cornelius was the centurion described in Matthew 8, or if Cornelius heard about Jesus from that centurion. Nor do we know if he was the centurion at the foot of the cross, who said at Jesus' death, "Truly this man was the Son of God." Peter says in Acts 10:37, the gospel spread from Galilee throughout Judea, and he assumes even a Roman centurion would have heard of John the Baptizer. If some of the ruling Romans had their ear to the ground, it could explain why Pontius Pilate was reluctant to condemn Jesus, washing his hands of the responsibility, and why he refused to change what he had written on the cross, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Cornelius is described as a righteous and God-fearing man, who is well spoken of by the whole Jewish people. While most Romans might look down on anyone who did not have a Roman citizenship, Cornelius respected both Jews and Christians, despite his Roman background. One afternoon, while Cornelius was praying at the time of mid-afternoon prayer, he saw a vision of an angel of God, who told him that God had heard his prayers and he should find Peter. Peter was staying in Joppa, at the house of Simon, a tanner, after he had been called to the area to heal Dorcas, otherwise known as Tabitha, as we found out in a previous Granny's GodPod. Cornelius immediately sent 2 of his servants and a devout soldier to Joppa to find Peter and bring him back. At the same time, God was preparing Peter to minister to his Gentile visitors by sending him a vision of an assortment of animals known by the Jews to be clean and unclean. Peter had never eaten non-kosher food and resisted the command to eat, but a voice repeated 3 times that he should not call anything impure that God has made clean. A repetition of 3 times is significant for Peter. 3 times he denied Jesus. 3 times Jesus asked him if he loved him and to feed his sheep. Now the Spirit told Peter 3 men were looking for him, and that he should not be afraid to go with them to Cornelius' house. As Peter arrives, the centurion falls at Peter's feet in reverence, but Peter lifts him up, saying, "I am only a man myself." As they were going inside, Cornelius explains that 4 days ago at 3 o'clock he was praying when he had the vision that told him to send for Peter. When Cornelius told Peter about the angel, they both saw how God had acted to bring them together. Peter explained that even though it was part of Pharisaic law that a Jewish man should not keep company with a man of another nation, God had shown him that he should not call any man common or unclean. The law of which Peter speaks is not scriptural, but cultural, and was widely known. Peter had come to understand that God accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right. He proclaimed the good news to all in Cornelius' household. Peter and the Jews who were with him saw the beginning of something new that God was doing. They have received the Holy Spirit just as we have. We see from the story of Cornelius that being religious is not enough to save a person, but we need to accept Jesus. And as Peter says, all the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. The story of Cornelius is also important because it shows that Peter could preach the gospel to the Gentiles, the same gospel that Paul preached to the Gentiles. It is not one gospel for the Jews and another gospel for the Gentiles. In Acts 11:19, Luke tells us the persecution that followed the stoning of Stephen scattered people as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus and Antioch, but they only preached to the Jews. Acts 16:11-15 tells us Lydia was the first woman to be converted to the Christian faith in the colonial Roman city of Philippi, located in the district of Macedonia in northern Greece. Acts 10 tells us Cornelius was the first Gentile to be baptized, and he was in Caesarea. The Ethiopian eunuch baptized in Acts 8:26-39 is not considered to be the first Gentile to be baptized because he was most likely a proselyte, a Jewish convert, since he was returning home after worshipping in Jerusalem. It is likely he worked for a queen of Cush, which was land south of Egypt. When Acts describes these 3 characters, it is easy to overlook how the spread of the gospel to the Gentiles was already reaching areas of Greece, Israel, and northeast Africa, from Jew to Gentile, from Jerusalem to the rest of the world. Well, that's it for today. See you next time. God bless.